Yeah, a compilation just came out, History Elevate. Can you tell me a little bit about this? What's on the 2 CDs?
What's on the CDs of this compilation, History Elevate, is on CD 1 is a collection of remixes that I've done over the years and some current stuff also, dating back to the history, dating back to the first remix that I did, the We Papa Girl Rappers, which is the first remix of its kind of revamping a whole another artist's song. The second CD is a lot of my classic records that I released, like E-Dancer, Inner City, and some of the others, aliases that I went under, that I remix by some of these great producers that are out here today still doing it. People like Luciano, Carl Craig, Loco Dice, Ben Sims, Claude Van Stroke. That's what you have there. And it is a collaboration of kind of my history and my effect on music.
So tell me a little bit about the We Papa Girl Rappers remix. I really love it and it's a classic to me. What was so special? I think it even did win something like the DMC Remix of the Year, is that true?
Yes, it did win the DMC Record of the Year. The We Papa Girls was, like I say, the first remix of its kind, and it elevated the remix scene. So I won this award for Remix of the Year by DMC, and it was just an opportunity to do this record, remix this record. I was asked to remix it by Jive Records in Zamba Studios. So the studio was the biggest studio I had been in at the time. Never seen so many buttons, and it was quite a special feeling to be in this creative room with so many tools. Didn't necessarily need them all at all. Didn't use much of it. Just used enough to what I needed to get done. And I listened to the record and I thought, why don't I make their vocals work with me instead of me trying to work with their music and their vocals? It was the opportunity for me, so I took the remix because I thought it was the right thing to do, and it was the right thing to do. I decided to do this remix because it was an opportunity for me to elevate my career, and I had never done a remix before, so my manager thought it would be good too. So what I did is I just took it. I didn't even listen to the record. I just said, okay. So I got in the studio and listened to this song, and I was like, okay, I must make this work with my music, because it wasn't gonna work the other way. Just, I didn't like all the pieces I heard. So, and that's what led me into making the remix the way it came out.
Yeah, it still works on the dance floor. Sometimes when I'm DJ in a club, I play it, and the reaction is always like, and I say, it's from 1988. They go, what?
Yeah.
So, before you did your first remixes, of course, you did your own production stuff and everything. So, there's this thing about Detroit Techno, of course, which I have to ask. How did it start for you, your interest in music and your first productions?
My interest in music came because I grew up with Juan, Atkins, and Derrick May. Juan always had little stuff in his house, synthesizers, little tape decks, just all kind of gadgets. So it grabbed my attention right away. So I didn't immediately start making music. I didn't even know what he was doing with that stuff. I had no clue until 4 years later. 1982, I think Juan released one of his first records, Cybertron. I just heard it and I was just amazed that he can make music. So I was thinking to myself, like, if you can make music, who's the band? Where's the bass? Where's the drum guy? Where's all the different, I never seen this band developed, because that's the only way my vision was. You had a band, you made music. Well, you know, through time, Derrick May was a close friend of mine, and that's how I met Juan. I learned a lot by being around Derrick about Juan, because Juan was kind of quiet into himself. We were friends, but we weren't that kind of friends. You know, our relationship developed over the years. So as Juan started releasing this music, I was originally from New York, but I used to go back home and visit relatives. So my inspiration and the way I got into this is a combination of subconsciously going to places like the Paradise Garage, listening to Larry Levan. My love was always the 4/4, so I was really into disco. I was into people like Shaka Khan and Stephanie Mills, that just individually, just automatically. So then the combination of being around Juan and Derrick and listening to a gentleman on the radio called the Electrifying Mojo, who introduced myself and many Detroit people to people like Kraftwerk, Tangerine Dream, B-52s, Parliament Funkadelics, playing these albums. He wouldn't play one record, he would play albums. And that led to inspiration, led to the knowledge that especially people like Kraftwerk could make music kind of like Juan was making music. You know, it was synthetic bass, synthesized bass. So in my college years, I got into it deeper. I decided I was going to become a DJ. I was playing football and decided to stop my football career and become a DJ. So I learned a lot through some mutual friends that we all had that was going to school there. They let me come over and play around, practice, just kind of sit around and see what was going on. And I absorbed this information and tuck it in, and just by being close with Derrick and knowing Juan led me into the path of making music. And I seen Juan make a record first, then Derrick made a record, then Eddie Fowlkes made a record, then I made a record. And I just kind of followed path. And when I made my first track, I had all the elements ready to go, all the parts, but I didn't know how to mix it. I didn't know how to put it together. I didn't know you need to mix it to make it that final production. So Juan came over and educated me on that. And once he showed me that, I was off to the races. I did everything else. I just started making music like crazy.
How was the club scene? Because I read a little bit about it, because there were some high school social clubs, is that true? And that the scene was a little bit, not harsh, but not everybody could enter the clubs. It was quite strict who could go there.
Yeah, you had some private clubs, organizations that called their self, I don't know, you had Deep Space, you had some other organizations also. Deep Space was more of an organization that was based around Juan and his concept of music, but these other organizations would throw events and it would attract certain kind of kids. It was basically all black urban kids that would be very progressively dressed, kind of like upper class, even though they might have been lower class, but they had that attitude. A lot were college students too, and they would give events on campuses, parties, these buildings in Detroit, certain locations, and it became just like almost like a little cult. And they were the first supporters of this music. You know, they were the ones who were there in the beginning. Who you did these parties, they were there. You know, it might have been a couple thousand kids total, but that's what helped the movement of our music.
And how much of the city itself is in the music? Because the surroundings, area you were in the city, how much of Detroit is in the music of Detroit?
The music of Detroit, I'm not sure how much is actually from the city, because when I think about it, myself, Juan, and Derrick, we lived in the suburbs. We didn't actually live in the city, of the heart of the city. Now, Derrick definitely lived there, and Juan at a certain point. But when I became to know them, we all lived in Belleville, which was definitely no city. It was a very green countryside with dirt roads and lakes. So that's what it was. So I can't really speak for Derrick and Juan. The city had no influence on my music because I only went to the city once or twice before I even made music, and it was very sporadic. The people are around, and the fact that I travel back and forth to New York, and my inspirations led me into the path of music, and just that's how it came out for me.
You were talking about Charles Johnson, and I read there was something like a mothership Spiel. It was really like a game that the people shall flash their bedroom lamps or headlights so that the intergalactic craft would know where to touch down. So did you do that as well? Flash the light or something?
The Electrifying Mojo, he had this concept, the Midnight Funk Association. And you had to flash your lights if you were in your car. If you were in your house, you flash your lights. Some other elements added to that. But I can't honestly know if I ever did that. But I definitely had the show on. You know, I don't know if I ever flashed anything. And I might have, I just can't remember. But he definitely had your ear. And I know that many people did do it, because if you drive and you see people flash their lights. There's no doubt about it.
I think it's a nice thing to do. I think nowadays nobody would do that anymore, but I think it would be fun. Everybody's like cooperating to this special thing.
Yeah.
So, were there not many records to play? You had some stuff, of course, from Europe, the influence of Kraftwerk and everybody. So you decided to make your own records that you can play more stuff? The
reason why I think this music moved like it did is because of the simple fact that musically we were kind of handicapped. I mean, there was some great music that we were playing, but you had to play the record sometimes 2 or 3 times a night, and we wanted more forward to the floor. Because, you know, what we started doing and the music that we started, it was part of not just the music, but it was part of a concept, being a DJ, playing music, but also playing a certain style of music that worked, that we felt like it worked, and it wasn't enough like that out there. So by us making music, it led us to be able to promote the music we were making and other people that were making it like us, to have a complete vision of a style.
Okay. So you had your own label then, KMS and Transmat and Metroplex,
yep.
Right? So it was really for me, when I was around like 17, 18 and I bought these records, it was like, oh, from the States, from Detroit and everything. So was it really exciting for you to have your own label and to do your own stuff then?
For me, my own label was very exciting because I felt like I could do what I wanted to do. And my first record didn't come out on KMS, it came out on Metroplex. And I just watched, I said, he sends it to the distributors, he gives it to DJs, gives it to people on the radio to play. And then he just sells to the distributors. So I thought, Juan, I want my own record back. I want to release it myself, because I felt like I had this energy in me that wanted to do the same thing, but maybe I thought I could do more. I thought I could do better, you know. Juan was kind of the laid back. He would get stuff done, but it was a little bit slower than my pace. I was more aggressive, especially back then, a little more hyper. So, you know, if I had 200 promos, those 200 promos would be gone within a day and a half. I have them to every DJ I wanted to have, where it might take Juan 2 or 3 weeks. So the whole purpose was, again, Derrick started his own label, so I said, well, I can do it too. I can do it. And by being an athlete, playing sports, it always puts you in a competitive mode, you know. You don't necessarily, you know, say, I want to do better than you. You just say, I can do it. If you can do it, I can do it. And that was just the same thing, you know, and having control.
And do you remember perhaps listening to the records of the others, like the Strings of Life, which is a real classic as well? What was your first reaction? Was it like, oh, my new record, you have to listen to it, or something like that?
Yes, I mean, I heard Strings of Life when it was being made, and it's funny because it started out as a slow, like a ballad. So to hear what it turned into, I was quite amazed at the sound of it. And it was, to me, just an amazing record. You know, when I listened to it, and to see people like Frankie Knuckles and Ron Hardy play it, because we used to go back to Chicago, me and Derrick, all the time. I was quite just inspired by the power that song had.
Yeah, as you say, Chicago. Of course, there was another house scene, going on there. So you were interested in that as well?
The house scene in Chicago was going on almost parallel to what we were doing in Detroit. I'm not sure how far behind or how far ahead, but as far as I know, Juan had made the first record, and Chicago was right there too. So people like Jesse Sanders, Chippy, Farley, Jack Master Funk, they had this great radio shows that were like, they were battling on the radio, playing mix shows, 5 or 6 hours on the weekends, Fridays and Saturdays. You could drive up 8 o'clock, you hear a mix show of one DJ on one radio, another mix DJ on another radio. So you might have Farley on a radio show playing, you might have Chippy on a radio show playing, and they would be playing all this house music. But so it was exciting because it was new music. It was new music for us to play, to put into our pot. So it made everything exciting. And then not only did you hear their music, they were playing our music. So we'd be driving in, all of a sudden you hear like Strings of Life, or you'll hear Grooving Without a Doubt, you know, one of my earlier records. And, you know, that was just a great support, because that's one place you could hear it, you know. You not necessarily could hear it everywhere, especially on the radio. That was hard to come by. So that became a very important market for us.
Yeah, I think the same, because I think it's like, as you're saying, new records for everybody, and an exchange somehow. Of course, it sounds a bit different, but maybe something to think about as well when you're producing a new record.
Yeah, you get inspiration. You go to the club, you visualize stuff, you see how people react. So you're always inspired some kind of way, you know.
So have you been to the Warehouse in Chicago? Did you go there?
I've been to the Warehouse. Frankie Knuckles played. It was good. It wasn't great when I went, but it was good. You know, and I'm spoiled. I went to the Paradise Garage, which to me, it was the most amazing place back in those times ever. You know, I did go to the Music Box also, and that was quite amazing. It was smaller. It wasn't, you know, like the great big sound system that the Paradise had, and the same type of crowd. But it was similar, just smaller. But Ron Hardy probably was the best DJ I heard out of that era of DJs. If you want to add Frankie Knuckles and Larry Levan, Ron Hardy was by far the best, most innovative, and he would just do stuff with the hi-hats and drop out the kick back then, where, you know, that wasn't really going on. That wasn't a popular thing. So he kind of innovated that DJ style.
And I was filming in New York some weeks ago, and I was filming the front of the Paradise Garage, which was in the 70s and 80s. And for me it was like really like, oh my God, so much history in front of me. So were you inspired by the Paradise Garage as well, with like Larry Levan?
Oh, most definitely. Paradise Garage was a big inspiration, because I started going there right around 82. Even though I hadn't started making music, that's the music I wanted to listen to. That's one of the clubs that I wanted to be in. I started going with my brothers and my cousins, so I got the chance to experience that. So when I started making music, you know, you go back into your subconscious and you visualize when you're making this music, oh, that's gonna work there. You want your record to be played at the Paradise Garage. So when I'm thinking of my music, there was plenty of tracks I was made for the Paradise Garage, the sound. I made that record for the Paradise Garage because I wanted to hear it on the sound system, and I knew it would work. I felt the vibe, and it was a record that was played.
And for me, it was like, I had some labels which I really was into, like Prelude Records or like West End. Was it the same for you that you said, oh, I love the producer like Sharon Red or D-Train or something like that?
Definitely back in those days, I recognized the labels as far as the look, more or less than the names. And you know, if you seen that label, you just grabbed the record. I didn't necessarily need to listen. I just grabbed it. I didn't care because it still was a short, you know, you still didn't have a lot of music out there. And if you had to go back and search, if you had to go back and search the history of music, those labels were doing it. They just was making some great music.
And I was reading that you listened to some records with Juan and Derrick with the lights out, only to listen to the sound and imagine why the people made the record like it was. Is that true? Or what was behind the making of the record? Some records?
You gotta repeat that.
Like you were listening with Derrick and Juan to some records, like really listening to the record, why it was done that way, or why the makers of the record did it that way. Is that true?
For music that was made, I'm not sure if I've ever sat back with Derrick and Juan and tried to conceptually figure out what were they thinking when they made this. I don't think I've ever done that. I think at least I might have done it a couple times on my own. One song or two songs, Supernature. It was such a unique, different kind of track. You like what were they thinking when they made that? What was Cerrone thinking? How could he come up with that? And another track that I can think of, Eddie Grant, The Warp, or that was another one, like the sound of it, and it just, you know. So, you know, but I don't think me, Juan, and Derrick ever sat down and said, analyze records.
Yeah, funny that you mentioned the Eddie Grant thing. It was only a B-side on a record I got. I was like, this is Eddie Grant?
Yeah.
He's not singing with this good, like,
yeah.
it's really cool. Something of White Horse by Laid Back.
Yeah.
Nobody expected a cheesy Sunshine record.
Yeah.
So, White Horse, how did you like that one? Was it like an influence as well, a little bit?
Yeah, it was one of the songs. White Horse was one of the songs that it definitely played. It's an influence because it was uniquely different, and it worked. As simple as that.
Yeah, it's really funny with these records. So, in Detroit, it was like a little bit like a straight black scene instead of like Chicago. It was more black and gay influence. Is that true?
Yes, Detroit was definitely more of a straight scene, no doubt about it. Even though I know people like Ken Collier, he was a gay DJ that was one of the first playing in Detroit that had his following, but his following was more close like the New York style. What he was doing was still based off of what New York was doing, but for our music and the people that were supporting us, it definitely was straight. Maybe not all straight, but you know, 80% straight kids listen to our music.
So did you have an eye on the European scene as well when the first house records, for example, entered the UK charts, like Love Can Turn Around was such a huge hit, for example?
I had no idea what was going on in Europe as far as the house scene. The first time I had any kind of clue was when I think they had these compilations. Was it Jack? It was out of the European, those kind of right, Jack tracks. And that's when I started getting a clue at least that this music was coming out also over there, you know. But I had no idea, you know. Not even when I went over there my first time, you know, I still didn't know. It was still such the early times, you know. It was just early times, and you know, we had no idea why people were calling us for our music from there. You know, first you think people messing around with you. You got these different accents that you're not used to, and you're like, you know, you don't even understand what they're trying to ask you. It took some time to figure it out, but when I knew it was serious and real was when I went over in the summer of '88, and I went to a place called Spectrums, and I heard Paul Oakenfold playing on Monday night. had this unique crowd from all ages, from young to older, to executives, to corporate radio, record guys and radio guys. And they were all partying, they were loving it. And Big Fun was played. And I never seen such a energy in a club in my whole life. And I've experienced at least, some places, and some of what I consider one of the biggest clubs was the Paradise Garage, and I still never seen such a magic. Like, people were just all of a sudden touched, and it was like everybody had to dance. They were all screaming. It was all hands in the air. It was a reality of how powerful what our music was doing in the UK. That's when it really became a reality.
And how were you approached then? Was this compilation where Big Fun was on? How did that happen? Were some people coming to Detroit and saying, oh, we would like to release something?
We were approached by Neil Rushton, who eventually became my manager, Derrick manager, and I think Juan, Atkins manager. But the first thing was Derrick got a call from Neil Rushton just saying, hey, my name is Neil. I run a little company up here called Cool Cat Records. I like your song Strings of Life. I like New Photo. If you ever need any help or advice, I just want to tell you your music is great. And that's kind of how this first conversation went. So I think Derrick ran into some issues with Jack Tracks, and he had a question. Now he had a question for Neil. So he called Neil up, and they talked. They started developing some kind of relationship, and Neil said, why don't you come to England? Let me take you around and show you what's going on. So Derrick eventually ended up going over, met Neil, came back, told us about the whole experience. He thought it was just a unique opportunity, and it was great. He kept the rapport going with Neil, and in time, Neil told Derrick, I want to come to Detroit and listen to whoever else is making music like you. He had heard some of Juan's stuff, he had heard some of my stuff, but he just wanted to get an overview. So eventually Derrick told us, Neil came to Detroit, met us all, listened to our music, came back maybe a month later and said, guys, I got a company called 10 Records. They would like to do a techno album on Detroit. And we need to select some songs if you guys were up for it, and get 2 or 3 songs apiece. And that's kind of how it developed, and we ended up doing the deal, and the rest kind of was history. The record came out, a single came off of it, then Big Fun exploded from it, and the Detroit scene was truly born.
But how was it then for you? Because I think you never expected that kind of success, that suddenly there was this band called Inner City, and the people not only wanted to buy the record, but they wanted to see you in Paris Grey performing on top of the pops and on gigs. And how was that then, from making records in your room and then suddenly being on stage?
It's almost like being a movie star. I had to change my whole approach, because to be truthful, I never plan on doing TV shows and doing radio and all this kind of stuff. I just thought I was going to make the music. I'm happy with just making the music. But I was influenced that I need to tour because we got a big record. I'm an artist. And I was like, I'm a producer. But I became this artist because of the success of the record. So, in many ways, it was definitely a great experience to be out there, to get the exposure, to do it. It wasn't something I was, like Paris, that's what she wanted to do. She wanted to be on front of that mic. She wanted to do videos. So it was a bit different for me. I was doing it because I was a part of a group that I had created because we had the success. I would have been just happy making music and letting her travel forever and DJing, but I ended up doing it that way. So reluctantly, but I did do it.
Yeah, then Good Life came, and I think it was even bigger than Big Fun.
Yeah.
So how was that? And we were like, oh no, more.
Well, when I decided to make Good Life, I knew one thing. I said, I want to make something that is still in the same family. I didn't want to change the sound because I thought it was so fresh and it worked. And amazingly enough, we were able to outdo Big Fun. And that, I think, ended up giving us that credibility that You know, we weren't just going to be a one-hit wonder. It was something pretty serious going on here, and it just became more and more of TV, more popular pops, all that kind of stuff, and after a while, it just became a formula. I felt like it was a formula. You make a record, you try to get top of the pops, and but it was never perceived in my mind to say, let me make this record that's going to cross over. I was making just a great record with a hook and a musical hook. My whole thing was about melody, musical hook, and vocal hooks. If you add those three elements up, you hear that in most of Inner City's records for sure. And if you take out my vocals in most of my songs, you're still gonna hear some kind of melody that you can hum or sing, because that's how I think when I create.
Yeah, I think what was great about Inner City is that it was a band you could see. You knew the people behind the band. It wasn't only a record.
Right.
I think nowadays it's quite seldom that you have like a dance band that you can watch, because it's
right.
more like a producer thing.
Yeah. It's a void missing in that scene now, and hopefully it will change, because everything goes in circles and times that, because that's an important need too. As much as we want to hear instrumental music, it's also good to get the other side of it too. You don't have to sell out or say I'm making a pop record. Just make the record that you like, and the rest will take care of itself.
And how was it that you were talking about remixes, and you also did some stuff for like Paula Abdul, Samantha Fox, and Apollonia, which I really love, Mismatch. I love that song a lot. So how was it then? Was it like, you said the We Papa Girls, I wanted to do something, and then came like Love House for Samantha Fox, which is great.
Yeah.
When I watch the video now, or when I listen to it now, it's still a great remix, a great production.
It was, to do these remixes was just, it still was the beginning of remixes for me. So I was getting hit with so many remixes. Every week I just had a remix. And then believe me, I turned down plenty, but still there were certain ones that I thought I could do something with. So I didn't know who Samantha Fox was. I just did the remix because, I said I can do something with this song,
So you had Inner City, and of course you had a lot of like other names like Chaos or Reason for Antonio. So many things going on. So was it like you wanted to have your more commercial side and the more underground side?
When I came up with the alias, it had nothing to do with commercial or underground. It had just something to do with I was making so much music, and some of it to me sounded like a different kind of a me. So I didn't want it to be all under one umbrella, and I thought I would just give it different aliases and to identify with the kind of feel and sound that it was. Reese Project was more soulful kind of vocals. Reese was dark, kind of deep. Inner City was, very melodic melodies and very strong riffs and hooks with vocals. So it all had a different way. Tronic House was a little more with some cut up break beats mixed in with techno to give it a harder edge. So it all really had different purposes, and I had these different energies or inspirations, should I say, for the music I was already creating.
And do you think that dance music always has it a little bit quite hard to be taken seriously, because a lot of people think, it's not like real rock music or something like that, like a band or so?
I think dance music sometime, especially in the beginning, definitely was perceived as being a form of disco that won't last, that won't stick around. And I think it has surpassed that in time, because electronic music is being made because electronic instruments will continue to be made also, so that helps it. I think that in America, in the States, it's looked at more that way than Europe and the rest of the world, that the music is not real music, or it's not like artist music, but if you travel and you see some of these producers and DJs playing all over the world. Sometimes they're doing shows for 40,000 people, 30,000 people. You got 80,000 people at festivals. So, you know, it shows that it's strong enough music to still make an impact, a powerful impact, and people have long careers off of it because there's the support. And it might not be the same support as your average pop record that we played on radio all the time. It's not always necessarily get played, but certain records through the time have broken through and were just as big as some of the biggest records. So, you know, that has happened.
And have you been aware a little bit of this so-called freestyle sound, like from New York or Miami? Like, for example, Shannon's Let the Music Play is supposed to be one of the first freestyle records?
No, I'm not sure of this new sound that's going around. If so, I don't really pay attention to the trends. I just, if it's good, it's good.
Yeah, it was in the 80s, in the mid 80s, it came out like Afrika Bambaataa, Planet Rock, and then suddenly it developed in New York, for example, some bands. It was like a lot of love songs with women singing their heart out, and a little bit like a teen generation sound.
Well, I do remember stuff like Egyptian Lover back in the day that, you know, I used to play in my set. Afrika Bambaataa, Planet Rock, all that kind of stuff. You know, definitely was, you know, an influence of music that I grew up on. You know.
And how is it today? Because I think clubbing in America has become different a little bit. It became a little restricted. For example, in New York, clubs are having a hard time nowadays.
Yeah, well, I think the club scene in America has never been very strong outside the early 80s, you know, maybe going into the, you know, up to 84, 85, it's pretty much tailed off, and then it tried to come back with the European influence of doing raves, and that got big for a second, especially in places like San Francisco, some in New York and LA, and then that died off, and because of certain government regulations and acts, and maybe because of the fact that people carry guns in our country, it affect also, you know, people feeling secure being in a club at 4 in the morning or 3 in the morning, you know. And the fact that it never was the media support in America ever, but so our scene has never really been very strong. It had some few strong moments, but not as a collective.
So there just was a festival in Detroit, is it true, the movement festival?
Yes, the Movement Festival, its 9th year. It's changed names, changed producers, but the last few years it's seemed to be running pretty decent. It used to be a free festival and went into charging, and it continues.
And what is your thing that you do there? Do you organize it?
What I've done and what I do with the festival, I simply just play now. I was the producer of it in 2005. I took it from being a free festival to a paid event because it had no support and it would not survive if I wouldn't have stepped in. I stepped out for 2006 because I'm an artist first. I make music first, and it was a necessity that needed to happen to keep the festival going. And the festival was quite amazing from the first 4 or 5 years, and then it started changing, and obviously when you have to charge, that affects everything too, because it's free compared to charging, you attract a completely different type of audience. So the good news is that the festival lives, and it's still good. It's not great because it doesn't have the same elements and characters of what a free festival would bring. It won't bring the family down there just to experience it, to have it, you know, come out and kids are dancing. You know, you just don't get that at this point.
You were talking about the Spectrum Club in the 80s. Of course, there was this whole scene suddenly, happening here in the UK, like the young people were listening to house music and acid house, and of course that's There was this like so-called summer of love here in the UK. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, it was a very uplifting scene in the 80s here with Spectrums and some of the other clubs that were going on. I think that the music was unique. You had pirate radio stations. You had people being influenced by Chicago house, Detroit techno. Some New York records were trying to float over to and, create, people like Todd Terry, should I say, from New York. You add all that up, it was quite innovative going on here. And, people were out and they were very happy. They were very into the music. It was like a big cult. A big rave, a big cult, whether it was club or warehouse, but they came in thousands, and it grew just like that, quickly, like a virus, I know they had a drug called ecstasy over here, and that definitely, in my opinion, helped to people, get into the music more or make the events last longer. Either or, maybe both of both, So the music was good, so it was good music, but it made people seem to be more happy, So that definitely, I think, added to the whole scene too.
I think that the people got more open-minded about each other as well. The clubbers,
yeah.
Hooligans partied with like gay people perhaps, or
right.
The whole scene was mixing.
Yes. Definitely.
And how was it for you then to be here and performing and to see this whole scene? Because I think it was totally different from America, perhaps.
Yeah, it was like coming here was like having a place that you look forward to playing because you knew it was progressively growing. You knew they were fans. You knew they were into your music. You knew. You could experiment here as well and test out a new track. And if it took off here, then it's going to take off everywhere. If it was big here, it was going to be big everywhere. So
why do you think that it's not like that in the States? Are the States too big for like some dance records to come into the top 10? Like in the UK, some arrived straight to #1.
The music scene in the States, I think, just never got the real support. And it was too far behind by the time it tried to catch up. It's like starting a book, open it up in the middle, and you're trying to catch up, but you don't comprehend what happened before because you have no support. Didn't have media support, didn't have TV support, didn't have radio support. But all of a sudden, it's going on everywhere else. Then all of a sudden you think this music is you don't even realize that it started in Detroit, the big movement of how this whole scene kicked off. It was right there in Detroit, or in the suburbs of Detroit, people were thinking inner city was from Europe, So, it just the story didn't get told at the right time to help get the support, to help spread it so the different scenes could develop at similar times or around the same time. It's kind of happened in different pockets. San Francisco was very much like England, It's the closest thing you could get to being like England. They would follow England and be just like England. But, all these English DJs would come over and play and influence the San Francisco scene. Then before you know it, trance got kind of big in America. It was the biggest thing compared to all the music. But people still wasn't getting the whole picture, Everybody necessarily didn't agree that trance music was the kind of music they thought techno was, so they got a bad taste in their mouth. Like, I went to this party and I heard this techno and it was so fast and it was this and I'm never going back again. It was like, well, you missed part of the story. You didn't really get to feel the music that makes you really feel good. And I'm sure trance makes some people feel great, but in general, that's part of what was going on too.
It's fun when you mentioned techno, because a lot of people say, oh, I don't like this house music, I like this techno music, but it's not. They put it somewhere like they think it's techno, but it isn't. So did the sound mutate at the end of the 80s or the early 90s perhaps?
The sound definitely mutated because, it went from what we were doing in Detroit to this groovy, innovative sound to other people in England being influenced. It became this industrial rave-like sound with these breaks and these stabs, and even in Germany, it became really hard. It was very hard. It was like just so hard. And from there, other music was developed because, you know, you talking about 3 or 4 cats, a small pocket. Detroit, Chicago was always pretty much house. So house was house, you know. It's always, it never as up tempo as what we were doing. It never had the type of sounds. So Chicago was still based closer to disco, you know, where Detroit was still more into the future. So, and New York was a New York garage and still based close to discos, where what we were doing in Detroit inspired more producers to try to produce what we were producing, but in their own, and the best way they could. So when you add that up, that grew, and it led to a next generation being inspired by not us no more, but by them. And it kept happening. So now you got trance, you got gabba, you got techno, you got house, you got drum and bass, you got so many different forms of this music. But some people think it's all techno, or some people will say it's all techno, but it did form from electronic instruments and from I think techno originally. So, you know, that definitely spreads it out.
I think what's so nice is that some sounds from Europe inspired you, then you brought something back to Europe, and this whole scene exploded, and then was brought back to America somehow again. So really weird. For example, the acid house scene. Of course, a lot of people think about acid house. They see the smiley and go like,
yeah. Right.
So how was it for you? Because I think it was quite a serious sound when it came out, like Future Acid Tracks, such a huge record, and then suddenly all these smiley T-shirts, everybody acid. How was that?
Yeah, to see the acid in the summer of '88, I think, take off like it did. That sound was definitely the sound. It was happening. It was, you know, but it wasn't a sound that was gonna last, because it was the same sound over and over. But, you know, for that year and a half, 2 years, or whatever, it became this fad that was just cultivated people, and hypnotically, the word acid just went with it, and it worked for people. But for me, as a producing a DJ, you know, after experimenting around with the 303 for a while, it was very cool, but it wasn't something that was going to continue, you know. And the records that were made at that time it was just great tracks, and for that time, for that type of sound.
And you were talking about raves, so they tried, for me it was like a movie remake, because there was the rave scene in Europe, and then they said in America, okay, let's do it here. For me it's like a movie remake, like a US remake of the rave sound from the UK. Do you think a little bit alike, or so it didn't really work in the States?
No, because the one thing I can say about Europe is, even people went out to the raves, they were into the music, and they followed a lot of the groups, you know. Even like when Prodigy became big, people knew who Prodigy was, they knew their songs, they bought their albums. America, we had these raves, nobody know who nobody is, you know. They don't know who nobody is. They eventually started becoming like Prodigy and Chemical Brothers, and people started having some popularity over there, more or less than most acts. But overall, you know, the popularity lasted not so long, and the people just didn't really spend money on the music, and therefore, you know, they were more into hip hop and whatever they seen on TV. That still really controlled and influenced the American scene, because you know, I think the Americans they tend to listen to what TV and radio tells them to buy. They hear it, that's what they want to buy. You know, if they see it, that's what they want to buy. If you don't hear to see it, to them, I shouldn't be buying it. But I'll go out to a party and listen and enjoy it, but not spend no money on it. So, you know, it doesn't carry over. It's a short-term memory. That's what's going on with our music. It's always short-term memory, and not enough support in America.
So I got 2 more questions, then we are finished, and I'm happy to do this interview with you, really.
Yeah.
Coming back to Inner City one more time, like Paris Grey, how did that happen? And would you do something with her today again? Will that ever happen, perhaps?
Paris Grey, I met her through a mutual friend in Chicago who introduced me to her. And he heard Big Fun before it had any lyrics written, and he thought she could sing on this record and write to it very well. He spoke very highly of her. So I gave it a track and told her to try it out. You know, keep it uplifting, stay away from the lovey love, all that kind of stuff. I'm not into that. Just let's take a different direction. And she did a fabulous job with it. Heard it over the phone about 4 weeks later. I loved it. I bought it in Detroit. She sung it, and a year later the record came out. So that's kind of how we worked. We established ourselves, and then we continued obviously with Good Life. And after Good Life, success of Good Life, we decided to do a full album and become a partnership. And that's kind of how it worked. We toured for years, worked 3 albums together, made plenty of records together that never came out, that we just made just for the sake of making it. And we recently recorded a few more records just in the last 2-3 months. And we'll see if it comes out. It's just, we wanted to record and try to record just to record. And if it feels right, it'll be released. And we're touring this summer. We're going to be doing 7 shows this summer as Inner City. So there you have it.
In Europe as well?
Yes, all Europe.
Oh.
All Europe.
Where?
First show is in London, July 11th, and we do Ibiza, we do Spain, we do the Netherlands. I don't know if we have a Germany date. I don't think there's no Germany date.
You should go to Melt Festival near Berlin.
Yes.
You have to tell the people who do. That would be fun. So a final question. When I listened to Hercules and Love Affair,
yes,
You Belong, of course,
yes,
song. Was it for you like an homage to your sound? And of course you did a remix for the song as well. How was it when the song came out?
When I heard it, I kept saying, that sound like Inner City, slow down. That's exactly what I thought. I said, this sound like us, but slow down. I mean, I thought they had good vocals, nice arrangement, they could sing, and it just sounded like us, slow down. So, so I thought that I'll take a stab at trying to do a remix on it and see what I could do, because I did like it. So, I liked it a lot. So that's...
So how was it? As you say, you listened to it and it was like really Inner City but slowed down. But wasn't it fun that there was this group? Of course, the sound is really like an homage to Detroit House, which I really loved the album. But for me, it was like so funny. I smiled big time at the song.
Yeah. It just made me think. I thought it was cool. I just thought it was very cool that, and I thought obviously for them to make a record like that, they was inspired by me. They're inspired by Good Life or Big Fun or Paris. They had some inspiration to even, go in that direction for that song. So, and then to come back and ask me to remix it, it was all right.